Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm always ready for rapid fire. Let's go.
Fill in the blank. Marcus Freeman's contract extension looks blank today.
Looks like a heck of a deal, baby. Looks like a heck of a deal right now. That's what it looks like, because he probably could have commanded some more money on that contract extension at this point. But I'm happy they did it when they did it, so it's not hanging over and and all of that kind of thing. But it's looking like a good deal to me.
We've got good. We've got fantastic. I mean, it's looking pretty genius, like from the Notre Dame perspective. I think you're right, because there were some who were like, well, why are you doing it now? Make him prove he can win playoff games. Yeah. Well, if you had waited, I think the price is probably going up even more at this point. Again, it was a little bit of a, who's holding the hands of poker? So to me, it's like, it's genius. It's you probably got a pretty good discount if you're Notre Dame. The timing was just right. Just like we said, like he had leverage at the time because of the fact that Ryan Day also hadn't won a playoff game to that point. And now, Ryan Day has obviously, acquitted himself pretty well, I guess, with how Ohio State's performed in these first two games. But like the timing was right. And I think it was a great move by Notre Dame to go ahead and get it done and lock him up. And it's looking like a really good move right now.
No doubt.
And look, I don't think he was going to hold out for, the last dollar anyway. He showed that, getting his assistants taken care of, making sure that other things were taken care of was also a big part of that. But he also got paid pretty well when it was all said and done, according to the reports.
No doubt.
So sports media reporter John Ourand hosts a media podcast called The Varsity. He had college football playoff executive director Rich Clark as a guest this past weekend. And Clark talked about how they came to the decision to have last Thursday's Sugar Bowl kick off at 4 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Central time, after they obviously had to push it back a day from New Year's Day to January 2nd.
I was on the phone all day and meeting with people and just finding out where everybody was with the situation, what their interests were. And then you just try to balance the interest of everyone, but knowing who the priority was. Really, the priority was the city of New Orleans and the victims, to make sure that we did it the right way. But ESPN was amazing. They, of course, they wanted the game to be at prime time because it was going to be an outstanding game. But they also knew what was really important here. And there was no pushback when we said we wanted to do it at 3. I mean, they let us know that they would prefer to do it at 8. But when we explained our rationale for doing it at 3, no pushback. And they were just amazing partners. So I'm really grateful to them. And then, of course, the coaches, they wanted the game at the athletic directors and coaches wanted the game at 1. It was really impossible for us to do that because of the operations within the stadium. They just couldn't get the security perimeter in and all the operations up and running by that time. But we pushed it to 3. And they said, if you give us 2 more hours, we can have it up by 3. How does that work? We took it, obviously. So it was just a matter of really working with everybody, understanding everybody's interest and the limiting factors, and then finding the solution that as closely as possible met everyone's needs, but really, again, focusing on the security of the situation and the victims of the attack.
So again, that's Rich Clark. He's the executive director of the college football playoff. And I should mention, he played football at Air Force and just recently retired from the Air Force. He was a general in the Air Force before he was retired.
Really?
Got hired, to run the
wow. So he knows how to run things.
Yeah, he's run things, logistics, right? So there are plenty of people, Vince, who weren't happy with the afternoon kickoff time last Thursday. Are you satisfied with that explanation that Clark gave?
I think it's a great explanation, to be perfectly honest with you. I was not in any way surprised that they moved it to the afternoon for a multitude of reasons, and one of which he didn't even mention. Now he mentioned that they talked to all parties involved.
Well, I could have let that go for about like an extra 3 to 5 minutes, I think, because there was like even more before that, but I felt like that kind of boiled.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But part of it was the teams. They wanted to get the game done and then get home. I mean,
exactly.
That's why
they wanted it as early as possible so they could get out of town because of the fact that they did lose a day.
Right. So I totally get that from a team standpoint, right? And the only reason the game was at 8:45 in the first place, you and I talked about it on the show, was because of the Rose Bowl and having to see the sunset at the beginning of the fourth quarter and all that nonsense. So I assumed it wouldn't just be pushed 24 hours, that it was going to be a little bit earlier. Now, when he talks about the city of New Orleans, now that makes perfect sense because by dusk, the police and the law enforcement within the city was out in force, right? And they needed to be at the game and they couldn't be in both places at once. And so that's why having the game during the daytime and then moving all of them out into the city made sense. You know what I mean? And I will say this, it's kind of a tangent, but we got into town on the 30th and the police presence at every single corner down Canal Street into the French Quarter had police. They were everywhere. They were absolutely everywhere. And that was on the 30th. And so the 31st was very similar. And then obviously it got bigger once, the tragedy occurred and all of that. I mean, they were checking every car that came into the stadium with dogs. You know what I mean? Like the security was heightened. And in order to do that, you need manpower. And so if you're going to pull them off the street, it's better to do it in the daytime than at nighttime. So that made perfect sense.
Yeah, I saw someone say that, I think it was John said that there was another bowl game. The Gator Bowl was also that day. And that was, I think, at 8
in evening
or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's when they ended up kicking it off. I think they might have changed it a little. Look, if ESPN had its way and Notre Dame and Georgia kicked off in prime time, they obviously would have changed the game.
Well, they said they wanted it that way.
Like the Gator Bowl would have been the sacrificial lamb.
Oh yeah,
in that instance. But you're absolutely right. That was part of the compromise was they needed to, those teams needed at least a little bit of extra time because if they don't kick off in the afternoon, like Notre Dame is getting back to campus probably around 3 a.m., maybe 4 a.m., something like that. By the time everything is said and done, after a prime time 8:45 game.
Yeah.
So I think it all worked out pretty well.
And
I know a lot of people weren't happy because you had to go back to work on January 2nd. January 1st is the holiday, so people had to go back to work and so you obviously lost some viewership and stuff like that. But I think you obviously had to, as he said, New Orleans was the priority in this whole thing, and everybody else was kind of able to make it work all the way around.
I have a feeling that if you really wanted to see the game, you saw the game. Like I just, if it was that important to you, take a half day. You know what I mean? Or you talk to your boss about coming in an hour early or leaving an hour early. There's ways to lessen the inconvenience, which is what that was. Believe me, everybody that was in town for the game were completely inconvenienced as well. And nobody was complaining. You did it. And you focused on, making sure that they could get the game in. Because they were talking about canceling the game for a while. It's like, okay, well, how do you do that?
What would have happened then? Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So you be flexible. That's what you do. You be flexible in moments like that. And you miss a food tour. Like, that's how you be flexible.
If you're Vince, you missed the food tour.
You missed the food tour. God.
So SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey also asked the CFP to have the Orange Bowl and Cotton Bowls swap days this week to give Notre Dame some time, since Penn State did play on New Year's Eve, and then Notre Dame, of course, played 2 days later in their quarterfinal games. Here's what Clark said about why that was not feasible to flip-flop the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl.
I think he absolutely approached me and asked about flip-flop in the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, because that would give Notre Dame back the day that they lost. And we actually looked at it because it makes good sense. But in the end, the logistics of this were going to be so dramatic. I mean, both for the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl, to switch those days was going to be a very heavy lift just logistically to do that. Then you talk about Ohio State and Texas, what they would have to do really to make the adjustments because they're already on a schedule. So it would have been a bit of a disruption for both of those teams as well. And then the fans that have already bought tickets, that have already plane tickets, hotel rooms and reservations and game tickets, the overall disruption of that was going to be really hard. And to be honest, that's where we came up with the 3:00 start time for the game, because that was the athletic directors, Josh Brooks from Georgia and Pete Bavacqua from Notre Dame, both had the idea of starting the game earlier if we couldn't flip-flop, to give one of them that extra day back. And starting the game at 3:00 versus 8:00 really made a big difference to them, because now their teams are getting home late night rather than early morning the next day, which gives them some of that time back. It wasn't a complete recovery of the day, but it helped make up some of the difference. And it really, I think, kept us from disrupting what was already in place for both of those bowl games. So again, you mentioned all of the competing interests that went into navigating this whole thing, and that was one of them. And I'm hopeful that Notre Dame can recover, get the rest that they need and the preparation time that they need to go into their game full up. But I think we found the best balance that we could.
Yeah. So when you listen to Clark talk about that, Vince, like Stymie is saying, if they would have flip-flopped, that it would have inconvenienced tens of thousands of people, to those games. Specifically, as he was referencing, the Ohio State, Texas people who had already booked airfare and hotels. And I'm sure as you found out, or maybe not found out, because, you actually booked, your return flight, for last Friday. So it was supposed to be 2 full days after the game. But a lot of people who were either going to go to the game or cover the game actually had to come home and not even go to the game after they had made the trip down there to New Orleans, because of the fact that the game was moved, because airlines are inflexible and hotels and the whole thing. So you can't just it's not as easy as just saying, well, let's just flip the days, because 2 other full fan bases had already bought tickets for everything and made their plans for the other game.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess, are you good with that explanation?
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. And like I said, when I was initially, that's not a word. When I was initially thinking about how much time Notre Dame would have in between games, it felt short. But the reality is it's Thursday to Thursday. It's just like normal. That's a normal week. And so that's exactly what these kids are used to. That's exactly what these coaches are used to, is 1 week of prep. And it ends up being exactly that. So I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. And I think that response is perfectly logical. I also want to throw out there that, yes, Greg Sankey asked them to move it, but that was before the game started. He wasn't looking out for Notre Dame. He was looking out for Georgia. He was not looking out for Notre Dame. I want to be very clear on that. But, the point is, the winner would have had an extra day. So that's why Sankey was.
Don't forget, Georgia was playing in that game. An SEC
Correct.
team.
Yes, that's why he was worried about it. He wouldn't have cared if after the fact.
Right. Exactly. All right. So this is Irish defensive coordinator Al Golden talking about Gabe Rubio. This is from before the Sugar Bowl. We didn't get to talk about, we didn't get to use this last week because we had such a condensed week and we had so much stuff going on. But obviously, I think it's, still pretty good to hear, considering the outcome of last week's game.
First of all, Gabe plays with a ruggedness and a high motor. Just the screenplay that he made the other day on the perimeter. That forced a 3rd and 3, I think. That's kind of emblematic of who he is as a player, right? So just high motor guy, will turn and dig it out, hoping to get to the ball and make a play. So in that particular instance, he did. So we love Gabe. I mean, he represents a lot of what we're looking for, just tough, rugged fighter, competitor, and has great size too. So we're excited for his opportunity.
So, Vince, there was a lot of concern, obviously, with
Yep.
Notre Dame's defensive line going into last week's game against Georgia. How different is your concern now compared to a week ago?
I don't think it's much different, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, what they needed him to do, I think he exceeded some expectations to a degree, but he just needed to use his big old body and plug up some space, and he did that, obviously. And he also made some plays, which I was not really necessarily anticipating, right? So I think he played above his skis a little bit, and they're going to need him to continue to do that. I mean, these are going to be one, if not two, really big games, biggest games of his career. He's being counted on, right? I mean, he needs to go in there, plug up the holes, make some plays, and basically just repeat the performance that he had against Georgia. I mean, if Notre Dame repeats the same thing and holds Penn State to 62 yards rushing, that's a good day for Notre Dame, right? And you can chalk it up to the defensive line playing very, very well. So, I was happy with the way he played. I didn't think he was going to play poorly, but he played better than I anticipated.
I mean, I always felt like because of the big body, because of the things that Al Golden was talking about, the ruggedness and the toughness and the size and everything else, like we talked about, he wasn't going to be able to replicate Rylie Mills rushing the passer, but that's not really what they needed from him. They just needed him to go up there at the line of scrimmage and be Gabe Rubio, be his physical self. He gave him 35 snaps, which is it's his highest snap total for this entire season.
Sure.
And PFF had him graded out one of his better overall defensive grades all season as well. So like I was not concerned about Gabe Rubio against the run. It was, if they needed him to be a pass rusher, he wasn't going to be Rylie Mills. But I mean, look at the pass rush that they got. They got sacks from RJ Oben, Junior Tuialamaka, and Donovan Heinisch. That's the first time that trifecta has hit all season long. So they didn't necessarily need Rubio to be a pass rusher. And I think it's going to be kind of more of the same this week as well against Penn State because of the way that they play, with a couple 1,000-yard rushers. Like all he needs to do is be physical at the line of scrimmage and give them what they can. So, feel pretty good. So the 4th and 1 play from Notre Dame's own 18-yard line in the Sugar Bowl turned out to be a pretty pivotal play with Marcus Freeman sending the punt team on, then calling them off. He sent the offense on, and of course Georgia's, running their guys on and off and all that different kind of stuff. So Freeman went into some detail of kind of the logistics, the background of that play.
Practiced it to a point where I felt like we couldn't get it wrong. I don't want to go out there and guess. And if it's going to be something that we do, I want to make sure we practice it over and over in the different situations, the different hashes that ball could have been on. And, is it after a timeout or is it, with a 40-second clock or a 25-second clock? We had to practice all those situations. And, then we went out and we executed. You don't always know how the opposing team's going to respond. I didn't know if they were going to call a timeout or, they did a great job. It was actually good for us to see defensively of don't panic, get lined up. They got their 11 guys on the field and the guy happened to jump off sides, but I thought they did a great job of not panicking, which the whole point of that is to try to get somebody to panic and, maybe call a timeout or do something like that, but they didn't panic. And but we had a plan. We practiced it for many days.
So, Vince, that says blank to you.
It says that Marcus Freeman is good at finding all the ways to manipulate a game, right? The whole point of that was to try to get Kirby Smart to call a timeout.
Right.
And in the post game, Kirby Smart was like, they wanted us to call a timeout, and we didn't. We made a mistake then, and gave him the first down. He goes, but we didn't call a timeout, and that's what they wanted us to do. So, I mean, it was absolutely a game of chess in that moment. And Marcus Freeman, you can tell he's growing as a head coach because he's finding these little spots to force other coaches to do certain things. And you're squeezing the last ounce of water, man, from the whole thing. And it paid off, right? I mean, it absolutely paid off in that moment. And I mean, again, the the battle of the headsets went to Marcus Freeman in this one. It just did.
He wins the golden headset for the
Right.
Sugar Bowl. That's
Yeah,
right.
he does.
No, I mean, like, the point that you made, like, he's not just leaving it to chance. I get, like, they're preparing for and taking advantage of every little situation, every little edge they think they can find. It's not that different from the swinging gate play against Indiana. Indiana ended up calling a timeout in that instance. So Freeman comes up with this, and like you said, like that was it was a big when that clock was winding down. Like I was like, what is going to happen here? Like is he actually going to snap the ball, or is he going to burn a timeout? It was like a game of chicken, coming down there to the end. But he was trying to force, as you said, Kirby Smart's hand and make him burn a timeout when obviously he needed timeouts because of where they were and how far down they were.
Well, and the week before, he forced Signetti to call a timeout,
right?
At one
with
point
the swinging gate,
exactly. And so I think that they're realizing, okay, well, we can kind of force their hand a little bit, and in that moment, those timeouts were precious to Georgia, right? I mean, I remember leaning over to the guy sitting next to me. I was like, okay, Kirby's got all 3 of his timeouts. Obviously this is a little earlier. And it's like, okay, when's he going to start using them? And then he instantly took the first one. I was like, okay, the guy answers that question, So, those timeouts were absolutely precious because they were down 2 possessions and they needed to get the ball back and they just weren't able to do it.
Right. No, that's exactly right. But Freeman is, again, the fact that he's preparing, and he's probably dialing something else up this week, whether it's the exact, it's not going to be the exact kind of thing, because that's the other thing, is whether it's these fakes or, whatever these plays are, like they've all been a little bit different every time. They've managed to be very creative and come up with different stuff that the other coach hasn't seen, and that there's really no way that they can be prepared for. So I just love, again, he's really just his mindset as a head coach. I just feel like it has advanced so much just in the last couple of months. Like you've seen him go to another level with some of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I don't know if you noticed on the TV copy, because I haven't watched the TV copy to be honest with you, but
I haven't either, because I forgot to record the game.
Well, fair enough. So on the punt, they were moving the line a bunch. They would go one high, and then they would go to the other side, and they would go to the other side, and they were just moving around and just making Georgia think about what in the world are they doing, and that's all you got to do. You got to make them think a little bit more. You got them. You know what I mean? And that's what Notre Dame's been good at.
Couple of different things. Andrew, I've noticed Andrew, you tend to sweat every little thing, every little play, every time the other team's got a player. It's like everybody's got good players, Andrew. We know that.
This is true.
And you've got to prep for them. Who's the best tight end Notre Dame has faced this year? This Penn State tight end, Warren, of course, he's talking about, is no joke. He's going to be a problem with his size. Should be interesting how Golden decides to play him.
They're not going to do anything different than they do.
Yeah.
They're not. Because look,
he'll be a challenge, and he is really good. He is.
He is.
He's the best tight end that Notre Dame has seen this year. There's not going to be any doubt about that.
All we heard about was how good the Georgia tight ends were in this game coming in. At least that's what I remember hearing. And I don't think they did a whole lot. To be the Delp kid had 2 catches for 18 yards. And I think that was it from the tight ends. So, and we were told that this was going to be a tight end game. It's going to be a tight end game. Look, the kid from Penn State's really, really good. Okay. But Penn State hasn't faced linebackers and safeties like Notre Dame has. So I'm not saying they're going to shut him down. You just can't let him beat you.
Probably Ohio State. I mean,
that's fair. Okay.
Let's be fair.
So either one, I don't know what he did against Ohio State because I haven't looked, but
they didn't score an offensive touchdown against Ohio State.
There you go. Yeah. He's really good. I'm pretty sure he won the award for the best tight end in the country, or he's up for it or whatever. He's really good.
He's going to be a challenge, but he can't carry the whole thing. And I know they've got a couple of good running backs and they want to run the ball, and and all that kind of stuff. But again, like if you look at what Penn State did against Ohio State, that's your comp in terms of the quality of defense that Penn State is going to face in this game. That's your comp, is what they did against Ohio State. The answer is their offense was not good. Warren, either of the running backs, Aller, none of them were good against Ohio State. So, and again, like Notre Dame's defense is right on that level.
Yeah. So Tyler Warren had 4 catches for 47 yards against Ohio State. And he had 3 carries for 47 yards, which is odd, against Ohio State. Now they put him in, Andrew said that they use him like Notre Dame used to use Mayer. No, not really, because they put him at Wildcat, and they use him in a direct snap scenario. So they use him even more than Notre Dame used Michael Mayer. Okay, so he's
Warren Warren is twitchier than Michael Mayer.
Absolutely, 100%. So yeah, you circle him on the report, and you play your defense. I mean, you're not going to do anything special. Maybe you bracket him to a degree, that kind of thing. But what keeps the ball out of his hands? Making Drew Aller make decisions he doesn't want to make.
Exactly.
So that's what I would focus on personally.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. So you may have seen by now offensive lineman Pat Coogan's pregame motivational speeches to the Irish O-line over the past few weeks. Here is Marcus Freeman on Pat Coogan.
This is an unbelievable leader. He is passionate about this place, and he's passionate about that position. He's another guy that we could use as an example, is almost like we did with Junior. That started the year as a backup. He was a returning starter, and to start the season, we felt like what was best for that game was, to have him a backup. And he didn't complain. He just worked. And now, he's in the position he's in, where he's our starting center, and he's just battling and doing a great job, and he's leading a group, and he's a mature individual that there's some young guys in that offensive line room that he is leading, and he's having a major impact on that room, but also our offense.
He's got some mottos too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got to hear some of these speeches.
Yeah, you need to look at Twitter from this last one.
Yes. So what do you think of Mr. Coogan's speeches, Vince?
I've never been much of a speech guy, especially those kinds of speeches.
Yeah.
Where they're just kind of yelling at me and swearing at me. Like, that never really got me motivated. But if it works for his group, then that's awesome. If they feed off of it, that's awesome. I'd like Pat to hold on to his blocks a little longer and worry about speeches a little less. But that's just me. I'll be the
feels like they're working though, right?
I guess. I mean,
for
look,
the most part,
battle.
No, I mean, I agree. Like Charlie Weiss used to say it, and like words at some point, like they don't matter once you line up and you start slobber knocking and hitting each other in the head and everything else, right? Like how much does the motivational speech actually mean? I don't know.
Look, if it works, like it works for some people. Like sometimes they just need to get motivated, and sometimes guys just need to get
it's good social media content, though.
Oh yeah, I want to know who takes those videos. Like who gets in the stands right above where the offensive line is? And, like,
it's like, are you up there with a boom mic?
Yeah, like what's happening here? But I guess I'm not overly surprised that Marcus Freeman had no idea that took place, unless somebody brought it to his attention, like now Eric Hansen has. But yeah, I mean. Look, again, if it gets his group motivated and it gets them playing at a higher level, then that's awesome. I don't care what works for you, as long as it works for you. You know what I mean? Everybody gets motivated a different way. Like I was never a guy who sat and listened to music before a game. That motivates a lot of guys. You know what I mean? Cool. That's awesome. I like to watch film before a game. You know what I mean? To remind myself of what I want to do. So Everybody's different. So if you need to be
Rabbit
yelled
Nile
at and sworn
Rabbit
at,
Nile says the speeches aren't for us. Vince has more of a problem with the speeches than I do. But like, I'm just saying.
oh right,
I
they're
can
not
see
for
Vince's,
me.
I can see. I'm saying I can see Vince's point. You know, and like, how much does it actually matter? But at the same time, you know, like I said, the guys seem to respond to it. He likes it. It's good social media content. They're 20-something years old. You know, as long as you're, you know, you're winning, just keep doing what you're doing. You know.
Hey, I completely agree. Whatever gets you fired up, do it. You know, absolutely do it. I'm totally cool with that.
Oh, and everybody wants to take their shots at him. David wants to know, was Jason Onye's absence from the team ever explained or just personal reasons? Is
Not
in terms
publicly.
of the public
not publicly
explanation, personal reasons, is it?
Right. Yep. And that's all you're going to get.
Yes.
And that's fine because he's entitled to his privacy.
That's right.
So, yeah. I just found out recently, actually, and I was like, okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I'll share with you if you don't know.
No, I know.
Okay.
I've known for a while. So.
I haven't. I didn't know because I'm usually on the outside looking in on a lot of that stuff just because I'm doing other stuff. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I finally asked and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because it was something that kept coming up all the time.
Right.
And so, yeah, there was a discussion a while back that we had in terms of what exactly it was. So,
yep.
And just going to have to leave it at personal reasons. That's just it.
Yeah.
Irish Eyes wants to know how you get kickers motivated.
Every kicker is different. The one that lives in my house listens to country music because he learned that from another kicker because it calms him down. Like he wants to be on an even keel. He doesn't want to be all jacked up, you know, for a game. He wants to be, hey, business. So he has like this playlist that he listens to. It's country music, apparently. He never listens to country music either. It's just this kicker, this D1 kicker that he met.
Well, there are other kinds of music that could calm you down as well.
I know. That's what he took it from this kid, and apparently it works for him. So
okay.
All good.
I feel like with kickers, like as a coach, especially, it's just everything has got to, you know, like most things need to be positive for most guys now anyway. But like for the kickers, especially, it's like you've got to do like when it was that Texas-Arizona State game last week. I don't know if you were watching any of that. And the Texas kicker had missed, and old Sark was out there before he was going out for his next one. And he was just, you know, he was laughing and patting him on the head. And then he goes out there and misses
another one. Right off the upright.
And I was saying, it's like old Sark is just trying to inject as much positivity into that brain as he could.
Yep. And maybe that works for that kid. You know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot of kickers, they treat them like pitchers, you know, trying to get a no-hitter. You know, you just kind of ignore them on the end of the bench over there. Don't talk to them. You know, that kind of a thing. I feel like kickers get treated like that an awful lot. But, you know, it's whatever works for you. Like my kid, he likes talking to people on the sidelines, like all the time. So, you know, whatever works for you, that's all that matters.
And then, you know, for a lot of people, like talking is you know, kind of like,
oh, my bad. Sorry, Apple Watch.
Talking is better than, you know, not talking,
right?
Because you're essentially releasing that tension, you know,
100%.
Like you're letting it out and not letting just all those, you know, thoughts build up in your brain. So.
Yeah, I absolutely. So,
all right, Psych 101 is over. That's going to do it for the show tonight.
Hey, sounds good.
All right, I've got to go ahead.
I was just going to say, speaking of the kid that lives in my house, I believe he's announcing his commitment here very, very soon. So there's a lot of people that
I was going to ask you because I've had people ask me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, last I heard, there's been no commitment yet.
There has not been. There has been a silent commitment at this point. Okay. And so I think he's going to put it out there tonight. He wanted to talk to his coaches, his high school coaches first. Kind of let them know and then put it out there. Look, it's just my kid, but I know people have asked me, so I figure I'll put it out there and just let them know. So, you know, we'll see how it goes.
Coming soon.
All right. So there you go.
Sounds good. All right. Well, hit that like button before you leave. We've got 2 more shows before Thursday.
Can't wait.
I like this Thursday thing even better than Friday.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Because like we got the game on Thursday. We've got something to react to on Friday. And then it's golden.
Awesome.
It's golden. By the way, in case you hadn't heard, Notre Dame women's basketball has pushed up their tip time Thursday to 5 o'clock Eastern time against Wake Forest. It's a home game. They were supposed to play at 7. They're going to play at 5 because of the football game at 7:30. So
this is awesome. I'm glad they did that. Allows, because
me too.
I would hate to see, like the women's game not have anybody at it because everybody's watching the football game or whatever the case may be. I would hate for that to happen. So I love that. So that's awesome. And you'll be able to watch the game too.
You got that right. Andre asking how my back is. Chairs at North Carolina, not conducive. Chairs.
Ouch.
So I was squirrely a little bit. Not as bad as I have been but I was a little squirrely trying to,
Well, the one picture I saw of you online.
That's why you saw those
standing
pictures
up.
of me standing up. They weren't. That wasn't like during the game. Those were during timeouts. I would like stand up and stretch a little bit during timeouts. So, all right, hit the like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.